Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lillian of Lillian Fashion Lounge and I am the face behind the channel Lillian's Fashion Lounge. In this video, I'm going to be explaining in detail how to draft a basic bodice. If you're interested in learning how to draft a basic bodice, watch this video to the end, like, share and subscribe to my channel so you can enjoy more videos like this. So let's get started.
In order to be able to draft a perfect pattern, we are going to be needing our pattern paper. In this case, I'll be using a marker, but if you are drafting, you can use a pencil. And I'm using a marker because I don't want, I want it to be, my lines to be visible. We are going to be needing a tape roll, ruler, armhole cuff, and the rest. Now, the first line that we're going to be getting is what we call the top line. Now, to get the top line, I'm going to be measuring 1 inch from the top, from the tip of the paper downward. You can decide to use 2 inches, but I'm using 1 inch for this in this case. Now, after getting your top line, you're going to label it. Then the next line that we're going to be getting is what is called the shoulder line. Now, to get the shoulder line, you're going to be measuring 1.5 inch from the top line. Then you mark as seen. Then you go ahead to label it. So after labeling it, the next line that we're going to be getting is what we call the bust height or bust line. Now, to get your bust line, you're going to be measuring your bust, you're going to be using your bust height measurement. Now, when my own bust height measurement is 10.5 inches. So I'm going to be measuring 10.5 inches from the top line to wherever it stops, and I'm going to mark across the paper. So I'm going to go ahead and label it as my bust line. So the next line that we're going to be getting is what we call the front waist length. Now, to get the front waist length, you're going to be using our half length. Some people call it half length, but in pattern drafting we call it the top waist length. So my top waist length is 16.5. So I'm going to measure 16.5 from the top line, and I'm going to be marking it across the paper. So after labeling, I'm going to go ahead to mark to get our hip length. Now, my hip length is 10, so I'm going to mark 10 inches from the waistline. Then I'll mark across the paper and draw the line. Now, in this case, for me, I always like to use my hip length to get my top length. But you can decide to use your top. You can decide to measure your top length and measure it directly from the top line. But for me, I prefer to use my hip length, or you can also decide to deduct 8 inches from your top line. It is not compulsory to use your hip line. It is not compulsory. You can decide to reduce your hip length or measure your original top length from the top line. getting our vertical lines, I'm going to move to getting our horizontal lines. Now the first one we're going to be getting is what we call our neck area. So to get our neck area, the standard is 3 inches. So I'm going to measure 3 inches on the top line and 1 inch for the depth. So the 3 inches is going to be the width, while the 1 inch is going to be the depth. So I'm going to measure it, and as you can see, I did not use a curvy side. I used the almost straight part of our armhole curve. Then I'm going to go ahead and measure my shoulder measurement divided by 2 on the top line and on the bust line, and I'm going to be connecting it. My shoulder length is 15 inches, so dividing it by 2, that will make it 7.5. So that line is going to be called the shoulder height or shoulder line, depending on what you want to call it. Then from there, I'm just going to connect it from that point to the neck. So that will be our shoulder slope. Then there's what we call the back width. Now the back width here, my back width is 14.5 inches, but for the sake of drafting this pattern so that it will be very visible, I'm going to be using 14 inches. So I'm going to divide 14 inches by 2, and I'm going to mark it across the paper. Then I'm going to go ahead and connect it as same. So after connecting it, the next thing I'm going to be doing is to divide the back width by 2 and also the shoulder height by 2. Then I'm going to be dividing the distance between the shoulder height and the back width by 2. Whatever I get, I'm just going to mark it there. Then I'm going to go ahead and get my bust circumference. Now to get your bust circumference, you're going to be measuring your bust circumference plus ease, then you divide it by 2. By 4. So my bust circumference is 39. Then my wearing ease is 1 inch, making it 40. Then you divide it by 4, then to give you 10. So I'm going to measure 10 on the bust line. So I'm going to be connecting my the bust point where it stops. Then you connect it to the middle of the back width and the shoulder height to the tip of the shoulder slope, and that is how we're going to be getting our armhole for the back. So I'm going to go ahead to get my waist circumference also on paper, just like I did for the bust. I'm going to be adding my ease. My waist is 33. I'm going to be adding 1 inch, making it 34. Then I'll be dividing it by 4. So whatever I get, I'll mark it. Then I'm going to be adding my dart allowance. For this one, I'm going to be using ½ inch. So I'm going to measure ½ inch after measuring my waist circumference. Then I'm going to go ahead and measure my hip. I'm going to go ahead and measure the hip, divide by 4. My hip plus ease divide by 4. Now for the hip, I used 1 inch for the waist and I used 1 inch for the bust, but for the hip I'm going to be using 2 inches, and I'm going to be explaining it later. Now when connecting the lines, I already connected the lines from the bust to the waist using a ruler, but I cannot use a ruler to connect the waist to the hip, and the reason is because our waist to hip is not straight, and that is why we are using a curvy ruler, which is called the hip curve. So after getting our back basic bodice block, I'm going to go ahead and get our borderline. So we are going to be getting our borderline. Now to get our borderline, we're going to be using the biggest part of our measurement. Now if you check this measurement, we have the body, the bust circumference, the waist circumference, and the hip circumference. Now among these three, you're going to check your measurement to check the biggest part of the one that has the biggest measurement. If it is your bust that has the biggest measurements, that is what you're going to be using. If it is your waist, that's what you're going to be using. If it is your hip, that's what you're going to be using. You are not going to, you should not use, you should not say because I use hip for this, that you're going to be using your hip. No. Whatever measurement that is the biggest for you is what you're going to be using. For me, it is my hip. So when measuring my borderline, I'm going to be adding 2 inches, which is the initial ease wearing ease for the hip. So I'm going to be adding it while adding my borderline. So my hip measurement is 42, then I added 2 inches, making it 44. Then I divided it by 2 to get the borderline. So after doing that, the next thing I'm going to be doing is to measure my neckline. Now before you measure your neckline, for the front, you're going to be getting a new top line, because you cannot use the same top line for the back for the front. So I'm going to be measuring ½ inch upwards or away from the initial top line. Then after doing that, I'm going to measure 3 inches for the neck width and 3 inches for the neck depth for the front. Then after doing that, the next thing I'm going to be doing is to be transferring my shoulder slope from the back to the front, as you can see me do here. So after getting our shoulder slope, I'm going to go ahead and measure my chest width. Now to get my chest width, you are going to be my chest width, I'll be dividing it by 2. My chest width is 15, and I'm going to be dividing it by 2, which is 7.5. Then I'm going to measure it on the bust line, just like I did for the back width, and on the shoulder, on the new top line. Then I'm going to connect it and label as same. Now, do you remember when we had to transfer our back shoulder slope to the front? That shoulder slope is what we're going to be using to get our original shoulder slope for the front. So now to get that, we're going to be dividing the initial shoulder slope by 2. Then after doing that, we're going to come up by ½ inch and mark it. Then we're going to connect it. So that is going to be our first shoulder slope. So now on the bust line, we're going to be measuring our bust distance. Don't forget that my bust distance is 8, so I'm going to be dividing it by 2, which will make it 4. Then from there, I'm going to connect it to the first shoulder slope, the first half of the shoulder slope. So after doing that, we are going to be using that leg, the first shoulder dart. So that this is going to be our shoulder dart, our first shoulder dart, that leg. Then I'm going to be coming up by 3 inches and measuring 1.1 inch from that 3 inch, and I'll draw a line, just as you can see me do here. Then I'm going to be measuring that dart leg, and whatever I get, I will mark it on the second dart leg. Then after marking it on the shoulder line, I'm going to be coming down by 0.75 on the shoulder line. Then I'm going to be drawing a line, as you can see. So this leg, I'm going to be labeling as our first dart leg, then the second one as our second dart leg. So on that point, I'm going to be measuring the second shoulder slope. From that point, I'm going to be measuring our second shoulder slope. Don't forget that we divided it by 2 in order to get our original shoulder slope. So I'll be measuring it wherever it stops on that 0.5 line. I'm just going to go ahead and connect it like as seen. So our shoulder slope is complete. So this is going to be our second shoulder slope. Then the next thing I'm going to be doing is to measure 2 inches from the chest width line. Then I'll come out by 1.1 inch. So then after doing that, the next thing I'm going to be doing is to transfer my bust circumference that I use for the back. I'm going to be using for which is 10. So I'll be marking 10 inches. Then I'm going to be connecting my armhole using my armhole curve. Then to connect it, you're going to be using it from the shoulder slope to that 1.1 inch to the bust measurement. So that's how we are going to be getting our armhole curve. Then we're going to move to the waist line. So whatever we use for the back is what we're going to be using for the front. Now in some cases you can decide to make your dart for the front bigger than that for the back. It doesn't change anything. So far as whatever you are adding as your dart allowance is what you are taking. It does not matter. So then I'm going to be connecting my bust to the waist with a straight line. Then of course, just like I did for the back, I'm using my hip cuff to connect the waist to the hip. So after doing that, the next thing I'm going to be doing is to get our dart. Now my dart, just like we have been measuring since, my dart is 8 divided by 2, which is 4. Then I'm going to be measuring whatever you measure for the dart allowance is what I'm going to be using for the dart. So what I use for my dart is 1/2 inch. So I'm going to be measuring 0.25 inch on each side of the dart. Then I'm going to be getting my dart length, which is 5.5 for this one. You can decide to use 6.5. Just make sure that your dart leg for the back is longer than the dart leg for the front. Then I'm going to be measuring my bust distance. Then I will coming down by 1 inch I'll be coming down by 1 inch on that bust distance. Then I'll mark it. So from there, that's how I'm going to be getting our dart for the back. Now for the front, it's also similar, but you're going to be using the bust, the shoulder dart. That's what you're going to be coming down from. Don't forget that I said whatever you added as your dart allowance is what you're going to measure. So for the front, do you remember when I said that the dart leg for the back is always longer than the dart leg for the front? Yes, so for the front, I used 4.5 inches, and for the back, I used 5.5 inches. You can decide to use 6.5 inches for the back and use 5.5 inches for the front. Just make sure that it is not equal, that the front should be shorter than the back. So there's what we call hip shaping. Hip shaping is going to make our hip, our bodies rhyme with our body. It's not supposed to be straight. So I'm going to be using my hip curve to connect it from the center back to the side. I measure 2.5 inches. So as you can see here, it is looking nice. It is coming together. Then For the back, there's what we call back waist. So I went ahead to measure my back waist, which is 14.5 inches. Then I connected it as seen. So after marking it, after connecting it from the center back to the side, I'm going to be closing it, and that is because we don't need that anymore. This is to eliminate any bulginess that is going to be at the back. You remember that there is some type of bulginess that is always at the back. This is to remove that bulginess. It will make your back seem to be seamless, whether you're using a zip or not. It's going to make it neat and smooth. That is what this is actually for. And because our back waist is always shorter than our front waist, and that is what this is for. So thank you guys for watching. I'm going to be seeing you in the next one. If you have any questions for me, please leave it down in the comment section. I'm going to make sure to reply you. Bye.